and welcome back to our App Master series. So a series of fireside chat with senior executives from top apps across different countries and different sectors. So as you could see last time, so we're discussing various topics regarding apps such as user acquisition, measurement, creative and so on, and also other topics such as diversity and inclusion. And this is exactly what we are going to discuss today. So for those who were not there during the last session, I'm Charlene Joly. I'm FinTech Apps Partnership Manager based in our Google App team in Dublin, and I work with the main FinTech apps player. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Shaz Younes, who is the CEO and founder of muzmatch, the world's biggest community for single Muslim people to find their perfect partner. And he used also to be banker at Morgan & Stanley, and he's a YC graduate. And from going from banking to dating, we're gonna talk a bit more about that. And today, especially, as we are, as muzmatch is really in the business of connecting people, we're gonna talk a bit more about diversity and inclusion, connectivity, culture, working from home, especially in such a COVID situation, and also about dating. How's love looking like with the current pandemic? So there's no one better than Shazam itself to tell us more about it.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we've worked for a number of years together. What muzmatch is essentially an app that helps Muslims find a partner. I commonly say, look, Muslims don't date, we marry. And I think very simply put, that kind of explains the difference between us and conventional dating apps or dating services. People on our platform are looking to find their life partner. I set it up 5 years ago now. And in terms of background, exactly as you mentioned, I was formerly a banker. I was 9 years at Morgan Stanley. I actually graduated in computer science, but kind of fell into the world of finance. I was on the trading desk, trading pan-European equities, so stocks and shares and that kind of stuff. I did that for 9 years, and it got to about 2012, 13 and 14, where I could see that mobile was definitely the future. People were conducting large portions of their life on mobiles, on smartphones, and I could just see the potential of apps. And for me, it just seemed really obvious that actually an app for Muslims who are looking to find a partner would actually be something quite big and is really actually quite needed by the community. So come 2014, I decided to quit my job and literally from the bedroom of my home, I started learning how to build apps. And in about 6 months, built natively the app on Android, on iOS, and actually built, designed, coded and launched it within about 6 months. I don't know how I did it, but yeah, it's crazy kind of the journey we've been on. And now, with lockdown, with everyone back at home, it feels strange actually working back from the bedroom where it all started, building the app again. So we've literally come full circle.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer. Moving on to the core of our discussion today. So I'm gonna ask you a bit more, about diversity and inclusion, and especially regarding the recent events and increased sensitivity to inclusivity and racial injustice. How would you balance inclusivity with the purpose of connecting Muslim together?
A very good question. I think, this for us is something that's super, super important, where the whole premise of muzmatch is appealing or serving what I felt was a very large underserved niche. The Muslim world, where Muslims constitute 1/5 the world's population, which is huge, 1.8 billion Muslims. But there were no services out there for them, for something like this, to find a life partner. We were, from my view, we were way behind, call it the mainstream markets in terms of using technology for people to start relationships, etc. There were stats around, in the West, for example, I think 1 in 5 marriages or no, actually 1 in 5 relationships start online. And I think now that's probably 1 in 3. So it's clear that was the direction of travel. Whereas for the Muslim world, we're way behind. I think there's a large family involvement, and not only that, Muslims are spread right around the world, which for a lot of people can make it easy, but also make it hard. I think for us, when it comes to looking at this market, even within the Muslim world, we're extremely diverse, both in religious opinion, in backgrounds, in ethnicities, in culture, in traditions. We're extremely mixed and varied. And for us, that's something we celebrate. The goal of muzmatch, for us is if you identify as a Muslim, whatever that means to you, you're welcome on muzmatch. And I think that's like a guiding principle for how we try and operate. We've got people who would describe themselves as very religious on the platform versus people who would say, I'm not very religious, but I'm a Muslim, whatever that means. And for me, that means something, and I want to find someone else who identifies as a Muslim. And I think for both of those sets of people to feel welcome and included on muzmatch means that hopefully that we've done something right.
By the way, just mentioning, I would recommend people to follow you on LinkedIn because you're mentioning a lot of, you're sharing a lot of different, initiatives that you are doing, and it really, it raises, that inclusivity piece.
Yeah, and no, thank you. And I was actually going to mention one thing as well on that. We, even as an organization, for us, I think it's super important that we listen to our users, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a bit later. One example around inclusivity and I guess people's ability to describe themselves. We actually, so on the platform, you have various search filters. You can describe yourself in different ways. And one of the ways was, how do I describe my ethnicity, my background, my culture? And originally, we actually had quite a short list. And our users were telling us, this is too short, this doesn't let me, it's too broad, it doesn't let me describe myself properly. So we actually spent a lot of time listening to our users, looking at what we had. And we had some ethnicities or groupings in there that, we look back on now thinking, actually, that wasn't wise, that wasn't a good idea, or that wasn't actually descriptive enough in the right way. So from listening to our users, we almost more than doubled the list of ways that people could describe themselves. And, in effect, it lets people find themselves easier through that as well.
Great. So moving on to our third question today. So we are going to talk a bit more about company culture. And the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you think are the pillars of a strong company culture? And why do you think, company culture is actually so important? And then after, I'd love to hear more about, okay, what makes, the culture so specific at muzmatch?
But really good question. And I actually think this is actually quite different for different companies to answer, especially depending on where that company is in their lifetime, if you will. Are they a very early startup? Are they a fairly mature startup? Are they a big company now, etc.? Everyone goes on that journey. We've gone from one person, which was me, to now 40 plus people. We've grown rapidly. Even as a team, I think I actually counted just during lockdown, we've made 13 hires. So we've had people joining the team that I've never even met. I've been having video calls, video interview. We make them an offer. Yeah, we send them a laptop. It's crazy, but this is the world we're in. And it's very, it's very hard to build a culture when you're navigating all of this. You want someone to feel part of the team. How do you do socials? Socializing together is probably one of the biggest things that you can do to bring people together. And it's near impossible right now. So it's definitely challenging. I would say even for us as an organization, I look back to our first year, our second year, we were actually quite small for quite a long time. We were like 6 people for the first, I would say, 3 years, and we were like 12 people a year and a half ago, I would say. So we've grown, and now we're 40. So we've grown, literally like this, and that's been a journey. I actually think it's opened my eyes to being wary of what is our culture. I've heard many times that your culture is often defined by that early team and the personalities that you have. That's your core that you build around. For me, that's been so important to see and to realize and to observe. Even for me, trying to lead this team, you're very conscious of different types of personalities, different standards that people set. And what's acceptable, what's not, but also, and that, I mean that more in terms of the way people interact with each other, deal with each other, help each other, work on a product or a project or a problem together. The manner in which people do that, the manner in which people communicate along those lines is super important. I think for us, we've been on that journey. We figured out what works, what doesn't, what we want to see more of, what we don't want to see more of. I think now we've got to a place where all the leads within our different teams, be it mobile, be it engineering, be it marketing, calling are the right kind of people who, for me, exude what muzmatch is about and the way we want to operate. You know, we want to operate with honesty. We want to be listening to our customers. We want to have an incredibly high work ethic, which I think we do. You know, we're a true startup. You know, we build things in 2 days that we know companies build in months. You know, to give you an example, video and voice calling. I still remember the day. So it's always been on our list for a long time to build video and voice calling into muzmatch. And one of the biggest drivers for that was literally more focused around women, to be honest, of their ability to use muzmatch and never need to give out their phone number, never need to give out personal details. They can have the whole conversation on muzmatch itself and feel safe. And that was the key for us. And I remember, you know, the day when lockdown was first announced, when Boris, the UK Prime Minister, announced that, you know, the instruction was work from home if you can. And that day I sent everyone home. And I remember the first thing we said was, guys, we need to build video and voice calling today. And we sat there, we designed it, we built it, and we released it in less than 1.5 months. And I'll tell you, and it's crazy, the stats, just since May, so that's what, 5 months ago, we've done 12 years worth of calls already on muzmatch. And I think that's just, you know, that's testament to just how that feature's been taken. So exactly that is, and you know, that didn't happen by accident. And again, I think it comes down to the passion of the team, the incredible work ethic of the team. You know, everyone literally heads down, stuck in. Everyone worked really hard, from design to engineering to the mobile guys to the marketing. How do we talk to customers about it? How do we educate users of how to use this feature, etc. Everyone came together really well, and we absolutely smashed it. I have to admit, you know, as an organization, I think for me that feature, in terms of how we got it out, was probably the best example of how all the teams worked really well together, and we achieved something which I think is super incredible. You know, we're the first Muslim marriage app out there, full stop, to have calling in there for free for all of our users, which for me is pretty incredible.
Okay, thank you very much, Shazad, for these answers. And there are two actually very interesting points that I want to jump on. The first one being that indeed, you know, like your not only your company, but also, you know, your team. And I remember when before COVID, when I used to visit your office, how also your workspace has grew. The fact that, you know, you've been onboarding so many people during such situations. So it's interesting because we have the same challenge, you know, at Google and also in our team, where you have those new people joining the team, and you know, you want to make sure that they are as, you know, included, as integrated, and they feel as comfortable as possible, but you cannot, you know, meet them in person. So I think this is a, you know, a challenge that a lot of businesses are going through. And the other thing that, you know, you mentioned, and I think is really important, is the company culture and how crucial it's important for a company. Because usually, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, like strategy or, you know, business objectives and so on, that are, you know, obviously central for any business. But something that is also as important is the company culture, because as you mentioned, you know, this is the company culture is really, you know, initiated by the people, the first people that created it, but it's going to have an influence on not only your business, but how it is perceived by your users. Do you have any tips, you know, to share maybe with other, the listeners, you know, who are with us today? What would you share, like, what would you recommend them in order to make sure that you keep, you know, the motivation level and the productivity level high? And how would you make sure that you onboard new teammates the best way possible?
Really good question. And I think I know just from personal circumstances and friends I have who have their own startups, etc. This has been something that everyone's navigated. It's been new for a lot of people. You know, before, I wouldn't say I was anti-working from home, but I was very keen to get a core of people working together in an office, because I just think amazing things can be done when you bring people together for a common goal, which, you know, for us was having the biggest app out there. I remember the day when we all had to start working from home. We've been on a journey together, I think, as an organization, in trying to make this work. And I actually think we've done a good job of making it work, working from home work. You know, initially there was kind of excitement. It was novel. It was new. You know, people were working from home. It was great. I can get out of bed and be at my desk in 5 minutes. And then the excitement wears off, and then you can see there's a bit of fatigue. People are slightly sick of it. They miss each other, etc. And then we had, at least in the UK, we had a brief window where we were able to come back back to the office, and a few of us would come back to the office purely because we missed each other. You know, we missed the office, we got a pool table at the office, we missed all of that, and it was just nice seeing people being able to get into a room and talk through ideas. You know, in the few days that we met in the office, we actually came up with some really, really good ideas, both for marketing as well as for product. And you do see that's definitely missing. But then lockdown was, you know, reinforced back again in the UK, and effectively we shut our office. We said, right, no more. Everyone is back working from home again. I think definitely if I look at, I guess, how the team have grown and managed this, it's been difficult, I'm not going to deny. You know, we have a monthly one-to-one process where everyone does a one-to-one with their team leads, etc. And we have a very transparent way of getting feedback across the company. So I kind of see the results of all those one-to-ones. And definitely something I observed was, you know, there were half of the team who basically had managed to make working from home work really well for them. They got into a nice routine. They were in a good place. They were cool with it. The other half were just finding it really hard. They were finding it hard to separate home, their personal life and work. You know, physically, they didn't have a great setup. You know, many people, especially, you know, my team are quite young, and for a lot of young people, they're living in, especially London, small flats. There isn't tons of space, you know, furniture, etc. It was difficult. You know, a lot of them were saying how it was getting to them. You know, they mentally were finding it hard to switch off. Mentally, they were finding it hard to have a good work setup. So we try to do everything we can in terms of helping the team out. You know, quite a few of them, we've got them desks, chairs, bits and bobs, anything they need to help them just be comfortable. We've tried to do that as an organization. And I think for us, you know, we definitely had a journey of initially over communicating, you know, talking as much as possible with each other. Video calls have been huge, but then remember, even video calls get exhausting. You know, they can be quite fatiguing. I guess it's slightly different for me. I end up having a video call pretty much all day long with someone, either internal or external. I get used to it, but even at the end of it, I'm exhausted. So I know it can be a bad thing as well. So we try and limit within reason the number of video calls we have, but I think it is important just to see each other face to face and not just hear voices, etc. So we have a few things. Every Monday, the whole company will be on a company stand-up. Everyone talking about what they've done last week and what they're hoping to do this week. Any big achievements we share as well there. And that's a good place where we kind of say cameras on, because it's nice just seeing each other, especially for new people, to get an idea of who everyone is and what they do within the organization. And this is the whole thing. So marketing, engineering, customer support, etc. So absolutely everyone has an input and is able to share what they've been up to. So we have that. Within each individual team, they'll have a daily stand-up where, again, over video, 5-10 minutes, doesn't have to be long, just checking in with their immediate team of what they're working on, etc. And then during the week, there's plenty of time where we'll get together to try and share ideas, etc. A few other things that we've tried to do, you know, like I said, we have monthly one-to-ones. We also we've already done, I actually think we've done a couple of virtual socials. We have a few principles that we try and kind of run things by. I think within the company, we try and have as flat a structure as possible, and we try and make sure that everyone can talk to everyone. And it's actually genuinely nice seeing everyone can talk to me, can talk to the CTO, can talk to the head of growth, and no one feels like there's some level of seniority and all that kind of stuff. We keep it very flat. We're all very friendly, and I think we try and be friendly, supportive, and helpful. And it's actually genuinely heartwarming to see just how the teams get on and work together. I just think it doesn't come by accident, and I think it's a factor of the individuals, the team involved, the hires that we've made, just having the right attitude. You know, when it comes to hiring people, I think that attitude is so important. And even when you're trying to hire someone virtually, okay, yes, it's harder to try and gauge that, but I think within reason you get an idea of what someone's about and how they interact with other people. Nothing will ever beat in person. I don't think anything will ever beat that. But I think there's definitely a lot of things you can gain and you can kind of observe virtually. And I think for us, I think we've gotten to make that work really well for us.
Mental health has been an important topic and has been, I think, rough for a lot, if not all person at some point, you know, during the pandemic. So I think it's really important as well, you know, for any business, you know, to recognize, to acknowledge it and be kind to their employees. And I'd say on this note, you know, that's gonna lead me, you know, to my next question, and I'd love, you know, to have your thought on that. Is what do you think, you know, like how you know you would ensure culture, like a diverse culture at muzmatch, and especially in such, COVID time, and especially, because culture is also, emanates a lot from its leadership. So if what are your thoughts about, what makes a good leader, also an ambassador of diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, fantastic question. Yeah, I think it's so true. And even for muzmatch, I'm really, really proud at the makeup of our team. We have a super diverse team. I think we're 50% female across the board. Yeah, so we've even got, on our platform, our community management team, the team who actually, within reason, police the site. They're looking into reports that users are making. They're dealing with customer issues. They're just making sure that the conduct on the platform is correct and valid for what we're about. That's an 11-strong female team. So, for us, it's really listening to our users. We're also realistic and very frank. On dating apps, be it ours or others. Unfortunately, it's generally speaking, women who get a worse experience than men. So for us, it's making sure that we have a female voice and a female team who actually take care of that and make sure that that voice is heard, and that we as a company are just doing the right thing to try and look out for their needs as well. So I think from my side, that's super important. But even internally, as a team, as a company, we're extremely diverse. For me, I'm super proud that most of our team aren't actually Muslim, and I think that's amazing. For someone to just appreciate the core of what we're about. The core of what muzmatch is about is bringing people together. And thankfully in a noble way, in the name of marriage, in the name of love. But it just so happens that we're servicing what I felt was a community that was underserved and ignored for so long. And I think it's amazing that our team and people we hire within the team, whether they're of any faith or no faith, from my side, I don't care. I've always said to them, look, the only thing I care about is honesty, that I can trust you as well, and that you have the same kind of work ethic and ambition that we do. And I've realized, and my own kind of learning on this whole journey has equally been, with company culture and trying to get a good vibe, if you will, at your company, it takes work, it takes effort, and it's something that you actually have to pay attention to. Very rarely does it happen by accident. You have to almost invest in it. And for us, we try. We're still a young, I would argue we're actually still a young startup. Like I said, we grew quite quickly and relatively quite late in our lifetime as a company. So we've come on that whole journey together. We've learned a lot of lessons together. But I think, we're in a fantastic place, which for me cements our future growth and our ambitions as well.
And on that point, I wanted to, narrow the topic of, diversity inclusion towards, your product, but also towards, like the current context. So I have a question, which is, it's two questions. The first one being, how, do you incorporate diversity and inclusions when it comes to, building your product, your features, or how you incorporate feedbacks? And also, given, the current context with COVID that has been changing, the status quo, how I've seen that you've launched, and we've discussed a bit about that in the introduction. So you've launched like a few features like the voice notes and so on. So how have you been adapting as a business but also as a product to that diversity and inclusion, but in the current even more complicated COVID context?
Yeah, no, look, COVID and the whole situation has definitely been difficult all around. I think that's been a challenge in and of its own right. Look, as a business, in terms of, well, I guess actually I'll break this up slightly into two here. If I focus first on the product and how we make sure that the product itself is inclusive and welcoming for our users. One super important thing that we've done at muzmatch is everyone who signs up, everyone has an individual match with muzmatch, and they can use that to talk to us. And we've had that from day one, and that's been so amazing and fantastic just in terms of our users' ability to give us feedback. And our users are brutal. They're very blunt with their feedback. They tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. Can you change this? I hate the way this works. I love the way this thing works here, which is great. For us, that's gold dust. And I remember, yes, exactly right. I actually remember, so the very first app that I built, that we launched with in 2015, I recorded every single bit of feedback that we ever had for the next year, which in total was over 5,000 different bits of feedback about the product, about the way this worked, about a feature that was missing, etc. And I actually then studied the whole 5,000. I remember having a massive Excel sheet. Then I started organizing it into segments of what I can do now, what we should do in future, what's super important that we have to do straight away. And I used all of that to design what I called muzmatch version 2, which we released in August 2016. And that incorporated a lot of new features based on exactly what users are saying. So for us, that's super important, and we've maintained it throughout. So even now, everyone has the ability to talk to our team, which they do. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, they're now talking to our 11-strong female community management team, you know, about everything, about the problems that they're facing on muzmatch, about the great things, the features that they love, about tweaks they would like to see in the app. And for us, we feed that back into the product and into the way we try and design it. I think definitely one thing we as an organization want to do better at is actually doing more, and it's hard with COVID, you know, because it's all remote now, but trying to do more, I wouldn't say focus groups, but I find it incredibly interesting just watching someone use the app, especially if they've never used it before. For me, just observing the little bits they get stuck on, the bits that they're like, oh, I don't like the way that works, or the bit that kind of makes their eyes light up where they're like, oh, I love this. I think that for me is just amazing to see, and it's very hard remotely trying to gauge that, but we're trying our best to maintain that. But I think for us, like I said, it's always important that we constantly listen to our customers in terms of what they want and try and build it into the product. In light of that, and you mentioned how has the business reacted in terms of COVID and lockdown, and I guess even how the dating world has reacted. For us, I mean, you know, we can't, you know, I won't deny this whole lockdown period for us as a tech business, as a platform that brings people together. You know, we've had record after record. You know, we've every week is almost a new record on internal metrics, on signups, on users sending messages, on matches, on making calls. You know, I mentioned earlier we've already done more than 12 years worth of calls. You know, 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago, you know, which is crazy when you think about it, you know. And what was actually really interesting is, you know, over 40% of those calls were started by women, started by females. So for me, yeah, I remember seeing that stat thinking that was a lot higher than I thought it would be. So it's actually really amazing seeing exactly the trust element. You know, for us, we always tell our users, look, keep conversations on muzmatch because we can be there to make sure that, you know, nothing bad happens and we can take action if anything does. You know, we want to try and be that safety net, which is very difficult when, you know, you're literally dealing with millions of messages being sent every day by users. You know, we've introduced a whole host of things on the platform: video calling, voice calling, voice notes, as you mentioned, rich chats, the ability to share images, GIFs, all that kind of stuff. You know, we've tried to do that sensibly as well. So, you know, by default, we've built it with obscenity detection. So if anything isn't quite right, it'll flag to us and also flag to the other person, so they know, do I want to see this or not, or do I want to report it? So we've kind of built all of that from the beginning. You know, I think one of the key things for us was how do we help people connect on a personal level when we can't physically meet? And I think the amazing thing that we've seen are people who have met on the platform, have spoken, have done video calls, have socially distanced, been able to meet to some point. And we've had people basically having their nikah, which is basically the Islamic wedding, being done on Skype, on Zoom, etc., on Google Meets, etc., which is amazing to see. You know, I've been invited to a few, and I know people who have had those kind of weddings. So I think it's people embracing the reality that we're in. Nobody knows how long this is going to go on for, and if you find someone, you know, especially during this time, I'm sure if you're feeling lonely before, I think during lockdown you're going to feel even more lonely, you know. And I think for a lot of people, when they find that special someone, I think time is precious. They don't want to wait. They want to just kind of get on with it, you know. They want to meet them. They want to live together, and they want to do all those things together.
The last question for today, you know, it's hard, I think, to, you know, overall make a business a diverse and inclusive one in a digital world, and especially, you know, in such COVID context. So would you have any tips, best practice to share with our users to how to make sure that you're diverse and inclusive in such a digital world? And especially, what have you done at muzmatch to make it work?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is just looking for variety in your teams. You know, if you, within reason, it'll start at the company. You know, there's two sides. There's the company, the teams itself, and then the product and the users. You know, if you look at the company and the teams itself, like I said, you know, a muzmatch incredibly diverse, and that's just I think from our side, it's just geared based on finding the best person. And I'm someone from an ethnic minority background, not remotely privileged background at all. Went to, when I was younger, went to the most bog standard school that you could find. Went to a normal red brick university and worked my way up. It was a lot of hard work to get to this position. From our side, look, I want to help more people get in those kind of positions as well. So us as a company, we've helped juniors. We've had juniors in the teams where they've kind of grown with us as well. And it's difficult because at a startup, there's just so many demands. You're trying to build all these things. You have people at different levels within the company. You're trying to juggle their ambitions. You're equally trying to juggle the company's ambitions. But on top of that, you're trying to make sure that teams gel, teams get on, and teams are very diverse. And I actually think I should count the number of languages that people can speak within muzmatch. It's crazy. We've got people from all parts of the world. We just hired someone actually now who's our first fully remote hire, who literally is in Greece right now. He'll be working in Greece, and this is kind of the first hire that we've made like that. I remember when we were 10, 12 people, and when we closed the Series A, I actually mapped out what I thought the company would look like in terms of the new teams I wanted us to build, how they should look like, etc. And for me, the key was getting a core, which was, call it London-based, and then everyone after that would be remote, because I knew that we had to make remote work. If I just look at the whole situation, it's just fast-forwarded that whole thing, so we have to make remote work. I think that's been the most important thing. What that obviously means is your talent pool opens up. You can have people from different countries, different languages, and you're basing them, or hopefully just judging them based on their skills and what they bring to the table, which I think is amazing. And I think we've just started dipping our toe formally into that remote world. The key for me and the key with our teams is that they are incredibly diverse, that we are very conscious of who we hire and who we bring to the table. And when it comes to that hiring decision, it's always in the back of my mind, over and above their immediate role, what do they bring to muzmatch? That's crucial. And it comes in so many different forms, not just their background, not just their education, their attitude, their passion, their way of interacting with others. There are so many different things. And I think just having a mixed team anyway just helps you get to that stage.
Thank you very much. Just wanted, to say that it was great to have you with me on, something else than talking strategy, but really talking about diversity and inclusion together.
No, look, thank you so much for having me. I've had a lot of fun doing this.
And to whoever is listening and watching us, I hope that you enjoyed it. And please tune in for the next sessions. We look forward to having you. Bye.